Welcome to the Get the Download on Slack's ROI for Dev Teams session. My name is Alex King. I'm a senior value consultant for the large enterprise segment of our value consulting practice. I've been at Slack for 3 years, and I'm based in our New York City office. In my role, I'm primarily responsible for working with our most strategic customers, particularly in telecom and banking, to measure the impact that Slack has that supports their business outcomes, particularly focused on growth, cost discipline, and the KPIs that support these particular ends. I've spent a lot of time working with engineering leaders to understand their business objectives, as well as their agile DevOps journey, and to help them and the Slack teams implement Slack in ways that help increase deploy frequency, reduce lead time, accelerate time to resolution, and overall create a better experience for the developers in their organizations. Today, we'll be talking about Slack and the business outcomes that Slack can help drive within developer organizations. We'll hear from Forrester, who's recently completed a study on Slack's impact on DevOps practices that they released last month. And then to help bring that to life, we'll hear from Daniel Spratlin, who is a Group Vice President of Software Engineering at Truist Bank. Let's dive right in. Let's begin with Forrester. Forrester is a research and advisory firm working with business and technology leaders in a range of industries to provide advice on existing and the potential impact of technology on their clients as well as the public. Today, we'll have them share the findings of the recent Total Economic Impact report that was driven by a double-blind study that they conducted on developers and engineering teams who use Slack. I'd like to welcome Steve Odell and David Johnson to the conversation. Steve is a senior TEI consultant who was instrumental in the creation of our recently published TEI report, which he'll talk about shortly. Dave is a principal analyst at Forrester whose expertise in research is focused on the employee experience.
Thanks for that great introduction. I'm excited to share with you today some of the background research in employee experience that we've been doing for the last 7 or so years here at Forrester. It's important because it sets the context for the study that Stephen's going to share with you a little bit later in the call. And it's also the most fascinating thing that I have ever had the chance to work on in my career. It's the people stuff around employee experience and employee engagement and how technology relates to that is fascinating. And a lot of scientific research has been done around employee experience and engagement for the last several decades. But some of the most recent stuff has really been the most revealing in terms of what it tells us. Early on in this research, I interviewed a professor at the Harvard Business School. Her name was Dr. Teresa Amabile. And what she discovered is that most of what the world thinks we know about what drives employee engagement is wrong. She discovered that when she would survey any group of 1,000 managers and ask them to rank in order of importance what mattered, they would say things like recognition or paper performance or important work or great colleagues. And it's not that those things aren't important. Of course they are. It's just that they're not the most important. And the most important thing, they would consistently rank dead last in the survey. And that thing is being able to make progress every day in the work that they believe is most important. Getting things done because it builds this virtuous cycle of engagement and productivity. And it's also tied to psychological safety. We are all trading time in our personal lives in order to be at work, to put food on the table, a roof over our heads, our families safe. And so on a psychological level, we need to know that what we're doing, we have a chance of succeeding at, that we'll be able to continue doing this. And so foundationally, it's tied to psychological safety, and that is really what drives engagement more so than the other things that I mentioned. But again, those other things are also important. What's also interesting is that the research shows that the outcomes of employee experience are for those organizations whose employees exhibit all the signs of being engaged, right, emotionally well and otherwise, enjoy about 81% higher customer satisfaction and about half the employee turnover. And for every standard deviation increase you get in employee turnover, you get about a 40% reduction in productivity and about a 28% reduction in profitability. These are non-trivial results for any organization, and it highlights how important employee experience and engagement really are. And they're good numbers for business case. That study was over 300,000 data points over multiple years, a nice longitudinal study. And you can see here on the right-hand side, lots of other organizations have studied the business outcomes of employee experience. So really good stuff. But one of the things that's unique to Forrester is that we have studied the relationship between technology and engagement. So I think that we're the only organization in the world that's done that, starting with a good scientifically valid measure of engagement and then working backwards to understand how technology affects it. What you're looking at here with the blue lines is the top 20% of the most engaged respondents to our survey, right? Engaged in their work and energetic and enthusiastic about their work and so on. They are really satisfied with their technologies, not just a little bit, but a lot. And those that are less engaged, right, the ones on the left-hand side are not just a little bit dissatisfied, they're really dissatisfied. But what we also see here clearly is that collaboration technology is the strongest predictor of engagement. This has to work really well. And it's because if you think about what I spoke about earlier, being able to make progress every day in important work, so much of that depends on the people that we work with, our colleagues, being able to ask them for information or being able to have a good social environment as well. But people's ability to make progress depends on good collaboration technology. So that's why it's so important. And there's other factors here that are also important, but getting collaboration right is the number one recommendation I make to CIOs around employee experience and engagement. And with that, I'll hand it over to Steve.
Thanks, Dave. That's great information and lines up really well with what we heard from Slack customers. And that's what I'll be talking about in this next part, along with how we develop the financial analysis around the impact that Slack has had at companies. But first, I'll spend just a couple of minutes talking about why business case analyses are important whenever you're considering a technology investment. Through our research, Forrester has found that next-level business case justifications are becoming increasingly important for technology investments. Specifically, over 90% of IT decision makers find value in a business case, with nearly 2/3 of them saying that it's very important. So what does effective business case even mean? Well, TCO stands for total cost of ownership and is a very commonly used analysis method. However, it's limited in that it only looks at how much a solution will cost an organization. ROI stands for return on investment and is a step in the right direction by quantifying the benefit that the solution provides in addition to the cost. And a TEI brings an ROI analysis even further by incorporating risk and potential strategic impact of technology solutions into that overall business case quantification and analysis. For those of you not familiar with TEI, it stands for Total Economic Impact and is a proprietary Forrester methodology that goes a couple of steps beyond TCO and ROI analyses. We take a look at technology investment decisions from all angles, considering benefits, costs, flexibility, and the strategic impact of a solution, which are all then adjusted by any associated risks. This analysis is a multi-step process, starting with due diligence, where we speak to both our internal subject matter experts and also to internal stakeholders at Slack so that we better understand their platform. Following due diligence, the Forrester TEI methodology is highlighted by the fact that we speak to actual customers that are using Slack. What benefits have they seen? What benefits do they expect to see in the future? And why did they decide that Slack was best for them? We get a strong understanding of their customer journey and the result of their investment decision. The key takeaway here is we're not theorizing about the benefits that companies could see from Slack. We talk to real customers about their real deployments, what benefits they've actually seen and expect to see in the future. We then aggregate all the data we collected during the interviews and survey, shape it into a representative composite organization that you can then compare your own company to. Finally, we write the case study itself, and this is where we include not only the financial model, but all the context and customer journey surrounding the numbers as well. In collecting data for this analysis, Forrester interviewed 9 companies using Slack and surveyed another 550 global Slack users about their experience. They told us that Slack became a culture tool. What they're used to do face-to-face, they're now able to do in Slack. They mentioned that Slack is significant for their employee experience, similar to what Dave was talking about. They didn't just have to use Slack, they wanted to use Slack. They saw improvements in general productivity across their organization. For example, they're able to work on issues globally around the clock and didn't need handoff meetings to get everyone up to speed on what's going on. And specifically for technical teams, they saw significant improvements in productivity due to the automations and integrations available within Slack and just the overall extensibility of the platform. And from this data, we're able to create a financial model on the impact that Slack has for companies. From a survey of Slack users, 88% of them believed Slack increased company agility, 84% saw information sharing improve company-wide, and 84% said that Slack improved their employee experience. When you add all this up, along with the hard data collected during the analysis, you get a 338% ROI over 3 years, with nearly $7 million in benefits and a net present value of $5.3 million. That covers the high-level takeaways from our analysis. It's compelling data, and if you're interested in learning more, I encourage you to read the full study where we go into the detailed methodology and calculations behind these findings. Thank you.
Daniel is the Group Vice President of the Lightstream Group and a Software Engineering Director. His business unit is responsible for developing new products and capabilities for the bank and its clients. Daniel, nice to have you with us today.
Thank you. Great to be here.
So I'd love to start by learning a little bit more about your goals and responsibilities in your business unit at Truist.
Absolutely. So as a software engineering director, I lead a team of engineers that are responsible for developing new solutions for our clients. More specifically, as part of Lightstream, we focus on delivering loans to consumers. These loans have purposes. They can be anything from home improvement to even things like new airplanes or horses. We've had some pretty interesting ones through the years.
So it sounds like you have the important role of connecting your clients to new financial products via the Lightstream app and other technology tools.
That's right. Lightstream is entirely online. And so our main way of interacting with clients is through our website and through mobile apps.
Great to know. So Daniel, you and I worked together during the initial evaluation. I'd love to learn a little bit more, hear a little bit more about the initial use cases you were hoping to see from a collaboration solution.
Absolutely. So when we set out to look at our communication and collaboration tools, we knew that culture would be a big part of that. The next area for us was integrations. When we talk about culture, this is all communication type things and making sure that we have a culture that supports people communicating in the right mechanisms, the right manner, and the right way. For example, we now have adopted standards in terms of the way that we name the different channels and workspaces. Even the ways that we use emojis and fun things like Giphy in our communication from a day-to-day are an important part of that. The other area with the integrations, we've connected our platforms into Slack so that we can do things like keep developers informed on code as it moves through our pipeline, and even where they are on working through stories or defects in the backlog.
Right. So it sounds like the initial focus was to create a dynamic working environment that keeps teammates engaged and helps them find a way to get to their next steps quickly.
That's right.
I'd love to double click on that a little bit more and learn a bit more about how your business processes and the collaboration has evolved over the last 6 to 8 months. Do you have an example or two that you can share?
Absolutely. So over the last 6 months, there's a lot that's changed. The first thing for us is that we've gone through a merger. Actually, we refer to it as the merger of equals. SunTrust and BB&T have merged to become Truist. That obviously brings about a lot of change. The next thing, which everyone's experienced, has been the impact that COVID has had. And so now teammates are working remotely. We have less face-to-face interaction. And so we have to find new ways to interact and to be able to get the work done.
Right. So you had mentioned a little bit earlier a bit of how you had integrated some of the tools so that people could stay on top of stories and some of the work. I'd love to dive deeper into that. What are some of the tools that you've integrated and the ways in which you're using them?
Absolutely. So we've integrated our source code management systems. For us, we have GitHub in place. And that allows developers to be notified when there's things like peer code reviews, pull requests that they need to look at. allows them to keep informed as code moves throughout the development process. They also use different channels to be able to interact together and troubleshoot issues as they're working on things. Another area for us has been with our agile backlog management systems. So we have developers that can see stories and defects as their status changes and moves throughout the process. They're able to keep informed individually and across the team on what's happening as things progress through our pipelines.
It really sounds like there's that combination of people and technology working together. And we've covered a little bit of the tech part, but you alluded to the people part as well a little bit in the previous answer. Curious to know about how culture has evolved at Truist as you're using and leveraging collaboration or a collaboration solution.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we set out to do when we started this is we knew that we needed to have the tools available to both individual contributors as well as even up to our executives. And so we've gone to great lengths to pull people from across the different teams into Slack and making sure that they're able to communicate effectively together.
Right. So it sounds like the team is able to come together and accelerate their processes, but also stay together during some really interesting and in some senses changing times that your organization is experiencing, but we're all broadly experiencing in the world today.
That's right, definitely.
As we wrap up here, I'd love to understand a bit more about how effective collaboration is driving business results. Perhaps in the context of the Lightstream app, I'd love to understand what you all are seeing right now.
Absolutely. So typically, to go from an idea to having something in production, that would have taken us somewhere around 18 to 24 months. And we've now been able to shorten that cycle and bring things to market in as little as 5 months. I think a big part of that is due to our ability to stay connected and to interact together as engineers. It's also been supported by our adoption of new and different technologies and things like the cloud and how we work together in an agile and DevOps kind of format.
Right. So it seems like Truist is committed and is already delivering stellar digital and technological experiences and solutions to its clients. Looking forward to seeing what the future of innovation holds for you all.
Yeah, absolutely. Technology has been an important part for us already and will continue to be a huge area of focus as we move forward.
Great. We're excited to see it.